The Vineyards whisper, a year in Burgundy. In the heart of France, where rolling hills blush green and gold under a temperamental sky, there lies a land that breathes history in every grape. Burgundy, a name that dances on the tongue like a fine vintage, is more than a region. It's a living tapestry of tradition, toil, and triumph. Here, in 2013, a story unfolded, capturing a year in the lives of 7 winemaking families whose roots sink deep into the soil, as deep as the vines themselves. This is not just a tale of wine, it's a journey through time, where each season whispers secrets of the past and promises of the future. Why does a single bottle from this land command reverence across the globe? What alchemy transforms humble grapes into liquid poetry? Let's step into the vineyards of Burgundy and uncover the pulse of a year that shaped a legacy. The dawn of January in Burgundy is a quiet affair. Frost clings to the bare vines, their gnarled branches stretching like ancient fingers toward a pale winter sun. In the village of Vosne-Romanée, Martine Raspail wakes early, her breath visible in the chilly air of her family's domain. The Raspail family, like many in Burgundy, has tended vines for generations, their name etched into the stone walls of their cellar. Martine, with her weathered hands and sharp eyes, walks the rows of her vineyard, inspecting the pruned vines. Winter is when the vine rests, she says, her voice soft but firm. But we don't. This is when we prepare for everything. The camera lingers on her silhouette against the misty hills, a figure both fragile and resolute, embodying the paradox of Burgundy's winemakers, delicate artistry rooted in relentless labor. Burgundy's terroir, a word that carries almost mystical weight here, is the soul of its wine. Unlike the vast estates of Bordeaux, Burgundy's vineyards are fragmented, a patchwork of small plots called climates, each with its own character. The region's limestone-rich soils, sculpted by millions of years of geological patience, impart a minerality that makes Burgundy wines unmistakable. In a year in Burgundy, we meet the Maury family, whose domain Bernard Maury at Fils in Chassagne-Montrachet produces whites that sing of citrus and stone. Bernard, a man whose face seems carved from the same limestone as his land, explains the concept of terroir with a reverence usually reserved for sacred texts. The soil speaks, he says, crumbling a handful of earth between his fingers. Our job is to listen. As winter gives way to spring, the vineyards awaken. Buds emerge, fragile and green, on the vines of Domaine Michel Lafarge in Volnay. Michel, a patriarch with a quiet intensity, watches the first signs of life with a mix of hope and dread. Spring frost is the enemy here, a specter that can destroy a year's harvest in a single night. In 2013, the threat was real. Temperatures dipped dangerously low in April, and the Lafarge family, along with their neighbors, lit smudge pots among the vines, their flickering flames a desperate prayer against the cold. The camera captures the eerie glow of these fires, smoke curling into the dawn, as Michel's son, Frédéric, checks the thermometer with a furrowed brow. Every year, we gamble with nature, Frédéric says. Sometimes she's kind. Sometimes she isn't. The rhythm of the seasons drives the narrative of Burgundy's year. By summer, the vines are lush, their leaves drinking in the sun. At Domaine Bruno Clavelier in Vosne-Romanée, Bruno, a wiry man with a philosopher's gaze, walks his rows, inspecting grape clusters with a jeweler's precision. This is when the wine begins to take shape, he explains, holding a bunch of Pinot Noir grapes, their skins taut and dusted with bloom. The summer of 2013 was warm, ideal for ripening, but it brought its own challenges. Sudden rains that threatened rot, and the ever-present risk of hail, which can shred a vineyard in minutes. Bruno's wife, Anne, recounts a storm from years past that destroyed half their crop. You learn to live with loss, she says, her voice steady but tinged with sorrow. The camera pans across the vineyard, where workers move swiftly, thinning leaves to ensure sunlight reaches the grapes, their hands a blur of practiced motion. The harvest, or vendanges, is the crescendo of the year. In September 2013, Burgundy buzzed with activity. At Domaine Thibault Liger-Bellier in Nuits-Saint-Georges, Thibault, a young winemaker with an old soul, rallies his team of pickers' family, friends, and seasonal workers from across Europe. The camera follows them through the rows, baskets slung over shoulders, laughter mingling with the snip of secateurs. Harvest is a celebration, Thibault says, wiping sweat from his brow. But it's also a race. The grapes must be picked at the perfect moment, when sugar and acid are in balance, a window that can last mere days. The footage captures the urgency. Hands sorting grapes on a vibrating table, discarding any that are unripe or damaged. The air thick with the sweet scent of crushed fruit. In the cellars, the transformation begins. At Domaine des Comtes Lafont in Meursault, Dominique Lafont oversees the pressing of Chardonnay grapes, their juice flowing like liquid gold into oak barrels. The sound of fermentation. A soft, bubbling hum fills the air. Dominique, whose family has made wine here since the 19th century, speaks of the alchemy of winemaking with a scientist's precision and a poet's heart. We guide the wine, but we don't control it, he says, swirling a glass of fermenting juice. The camera lingers on the barrels, their wood stained with decades of use, each one a vessel for the region's history. Not every family in a year in Burgundy is a traditionalist. At Maison Louis Jadot, one of Burgundy's largest négociants, Jacques Lardière blends tradition with innovation. In 2013, Jacques, nearing retirement after 42 years, oversaw the blending of wines from across the region. His tasting room, lined with bottles and maps, is a cathedral of knowledge. A great wine tells a story, he says, sniffing a sample from a Côte de Nuit vineyard. It's the story of the land, the year, the people. The camera captures his hands, steady despite his age, as he pours a ruby-red Pinot Noir, the light catching its clarity. Jacques' work bridges the small domains and the global market, a reminder that Burgundy's wines, while rooted in tiny plots, reach far beyond its borders. The human stories woven through the year are as compelling as the wine itself. At Domaine Bruno Clavelier, we meet Anne again, who left a career in Paris to join her husband in the vineyards. Her transition wasn't easy. She speaks candidly of the isolation of rural life and the pressure of carrying on a family legacy. "I didn't choose wine," she says, smiling wryly. "It chose me." Similarly, Martine Raspail shares memories of her grandfather, who rebuilt their domain after the devastation of World War II. "Every bottle we make carries his courage," she says, her eyes glistening as she polishes a glass in her tasting room. These personal narratives ground the film, reminding us that Burgundy's wines are not just products, but extensions of lives lived in service to the land. The seasons turn, and by autumn, the wines are resting in their barrels, but the work doesn't stop. At Domaine Michel Lafarge, Frederick monitors the fermentation, adjusting temperatures and tasting daily. "It's like raising a child," he says, his voice low in the dim cellar. "You watch, you worry, you hope." The camera captures the stillness of the cellar, a stark contrast to the frenetic harvest, with only the occasional drip of water echoing in the stone chambers. This quiet moment reflects the patience required in winemaking, a process that can take years before a bottle is ready. Burgundy's wines are not just a product of the land, but of its people's resilience. In 2013, the region faced a challenging year. Spring frosts, summer rains, and a compressed harvest window tested every winemaker. Yet, as the camera sweeps across the Golden Hills in October, there's a sense of triumph. The wines of 2013, though smaller in yield, were exceptional, with a vibrancy that reflected the year's struggles. Bernard Morey, tasting a young Chardonnay, nods approvingly. "This one will age beautifully," he says, his smile a rare break in his stoic demeanor. The footage of his tasting, framed by the ancient stone of his cellar, feels like a victory lap for the entire region. The global reach of Burgundy's wines is another thread in this story. In New York, we follow Martine Saunier, a wine importer who has championed Burgundy's small producers for decades. She hosts tastings, introducing American buyers to the 2013 vintages. Her passion is infectious, as she describes a Vosne-Romanée from Domaine Bruno Clavelier. Her hands gesture like a conductor's, and the buyers lean in, captivated. "Burgundy is about intimacy," she says. "You taste the place, the person, the year." The camera cuts between her lively tastings and the quiet vineyards back in France, a visual reminder of the journey from vine to glass. As winter returns, the cycle begins anew. The vines are pruned, the cellars cleaned, and the winemakers prepare for another year. At Domaine Thibault Liguière-Belair, Thibault stands on a hill overlooking his vineyard, the wind tugging at his scarf. "This is my life," he says, his voice carrying both pride and weight. "You give everything to the vines, and they give it back. Not always how you expect, but always honestly." The camera pans across the landscape, now bare under a gray sky, the vines dormant but alive with possibility. The story of 2013 in Burgundy is not just about wine. It's about legacy, resilience, and the delicate dance between humans and nature. Each family Raspail, Morey, Lafarge, Clavelier, Liguière-Belair, Lafon, and Jadot carries a piece of this legacy, their stories interwoven with the land they tend. The wines they produce are more than beverages. They are time capsules, capturing the essence of a year, a place, and a people. As the camera fades to black, we're left with a final image, a single bottle on a wooden table, its label worn but proud, a testament to the hands that crafted it and the land that birthed it. This is Burgundy, where every glass tells a story, and every story tastes of home. As the seasons turn and the vines endure, one truth remains. In this corner of France, the past is never far from the present, and the future is always a sip away.